Organized. This event is organized by the Justice for Sully.
So what's going on today?
Today, this is part of the Justice for Sully Ontario Prison Tour. This is the second stop into our tour, but effectively we are rallying for mental health rights within the justice system. Too many Canadians, too many vulnerable Canadians have died within the parameters of the justice system. I can name many, and so we are saying enough is enough. Canadians across the nation are, and this is what today's event will be, where we have several families that have lost their loved ones at the hands of the justice system that will be speaking today.
So tell me, what is the road number and goal for all this? Why are you doing this?
Well, the first and the most pertinent goal is we want accountability into the killing of Suleiman Fakiri by guards at the Central East Correctional Centre in Lindsay, Ontario. The second thing is we want to make sure that people with mental illness, the families that have lost their loved ones, they're to be, rights are supposed to be given to people for mental illness within the prison system. And third, we stand in solidarity with the prisoners in the Milton Jail, the Vancouver Correctional Complex that are in strike due to deteriorating conditions. Que la santé mentale, c'est la plus importante chose au Canada, qui commence à Colombie-Britannique jusqu'à Terre-Neuve. People need to see Canadians across the nation are touched by mental illness because it does not discriminate. It touches all of us. So in that picture, people need to see from all walks of life, all perspectives. And with that, we'll start the event.
Been organized by Justice for Sully, with the immense solidarity from the Sherrod family, the Spalding family, and the Tutory family, and a little bit of support from Solidarity Against Violence. Together with supporters, families are here gathered outside the Toronto South Detention Centre to raise their voices in a united call for mental health rights within the provincial justice system. Today we will be hearing directly from the families of Jordan Sherrod, Sean Spalding, Ijaz Choudhury, and Suleiman Fakiri, who were all suffering from mental illness and who lost their lives at the hands of the justice system. Today, we will also be hearing from experts from the field, including criminal defense lawyer Kofi Ashampong, disability advocate and founder of Disability Justice Network Ontario, Sarah Jama is not going to be able to join us today because of another affair, but we send love to Sarah. And executive director from Across Boundaries Mental Health, Asifa Sarang. I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing anybody's name. Please do tell me and I will correct that. My name is Rochelle, and I am so thankful that you're all here today. Just before we get started, can people hear me well all the way back? How's the sound system back there? We're good? We're clear? Awesome. So we want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today to join us for this rally for mental health rights within the prison system. We are happy to see all your faces today, but we only want to see so much of them because we're still in strange pandemic times. So if you, for whatever reason, need some more personal protective equipment, we've got some masks, some gloves, we've got hand sanitizer, and the rest back over there. So do your best to kind of keep space from people and to honor people's needs for that bit of space, but thank you for being here today and taking care of each other. There is also some free food and some water back there. There's some salty snacks and some sweet snacks and some homemade snacks and a whole bunch of liquids to make sure that we stay hydrated and keep our blood sugar going at levels that keep us here and focused. If you have any questions today about where to find things or what's going on, there are a couple people, and one in the tent back there, one with their arm up over here, who are wearing an armband that's bright like mine. And so if you have any questions, or if you see any guards or police officers or anybody like that, just flag one of those folks down and they'll make sure to help you get what you need or get the right people to talk to the people who are here. A couple other things that are really important to say. We have invited you here to join us today in assembling on the outside of this jail so that we can unite in taking direct action against these terrible prison systems that are places where people of any type should not be locked behind bars, but where in particular people who suffer from mental illness should not be locked away. We are going to be streaming things today over Facebook Live and recording things. And that's because this is part of a campaign, an ongoing campaign. This is the second in a Stop that Justice for Solly is doing at a number of prisons, trying to give solidarity to prisoners who are working on the inside for better conditions, trying to get the word out. That said, we all know what it means to be part of movements that are scrutinized. So please, if you are not directly the media, paying attention to what's happening over here with the speakers, if you're not somebody who, you know, has a express purpose, don't take photos just of random people here. If you're gonna say somebody has a great sign, just go up to them and do the human thing and just ask if it would be okay to take that photo. And if you have intention to put it, say, on a website or someplace public, also ask for consent with that. So this is a public event, but we also really want to honor people's right to privacy and to safety, and so we're asking everybody to work together to honor that. One last really important thing before we get started today, talking about why we're here and why families are coming together in this movement to build a capacity for us to resist the incarceration of our loved ones, and especially the incarceration of those who suffer from mental illness. And that is starting from a place of recognizing where it is that we stand. Before we talk about the terrible prison, it's really actually important to think about how we've all come to be here, how we've come to be situated on this land. Because we are gathered on land that is today, has always been, and will for perpetuity be Indigenous land. Since contact, Indigenous people have been captured, imprisoned, and killed on their own land. Since contact, Indigenous people have been resisting, mobilizing, and somehow surviving occupation of their lands. We recognize the long history, enduring presence, and ongoing struggles of Indigenous peoples on these lands. We recognize and honor that under colonial occupation and within the context of white supremacy, Indigenous cultures and communities have and continue to experience horrific degrees of economic, political, legal, cultural, and interpersonal violence. We recognize that these violences include, but are not limited to, widespread prejudice and discrimination, racially motivated assault, mass murder and disappearances, pronounced police brutality, extraordinarily high rates of incarceration, impoverishment, displacement, linguicide, and genocide. We recognize the rights to self-determination, to sovereignty, to self-preservation, and to self-defense of Indigenous people over their own lives, communities, cultures, and territories. We recognize the reality that colonial occupation of these lands is an ongoing project which results in allowing prosperity and privileges to settlers to this land named Canada by its occupiers, rather than honoring, providing for, and protecting the Indigenous people of this land. We recognize that under colonialism, decolonization mobilizations, Indigenous justice and sovereignty movements, and Indigenous people and their cultures themselves have been criminalized. We recognize the necessity for all settlers to support Indigenous struggle and seek an end to the cultural carcerality of white supremacist colonialism. We recognize and offer our respect and deepest gratitudes for the opportunity to live, work, play, gather, and organize on this part of Turtle Island. And we understand that it is our responsibility to be diligent and mindful stewards of this land. We recognize that actions rather than simple words are necessary if respect, reconciliation, and reparations are to be sincerely offered to the Indigenous peoples of this land. And as such, we recognize that offering a land acknowledgement is only one small step forward. We recognize that building concrete, long-term, and dedicated relationships with the Indigenous peoples of this land and asking them how we can best show up, show reverence, and honor our responsibilities is necessary. We honor all of the creatures and original peoples of this beautiful place. We thank this land, these waters, this air, and the fire that feeds and warms us. We are here today to talk about some very, very important political issues, but it is crucial that in all the things that we do on these territories, that we remember that first occupational wound, that first act of carcerality on these territories, where an occupying force came in and told the others what to do with their bodies, their time, their land, their families, their communities, and their cultures, and what has been set off from there on these territories, entrenching this entire culture with a carcerality that is particularly racist, that is particularly ableist. So in 2016, Solomon Fakiri was brutally killed by the guards at the Central East Correctional Center, otherwise known as the Lindsay Super Jail. For the Fakiri family, his loss was and remains indescribably agonizing. But somehow, the Fakiri family found and cultivated strength in each other, in their faith, in their community, and their deep love for Solomon, and they decided to harvest their grief in order to feed resistance. They set out to seek justice for Solly and justice for all those killed at the hands of state agents, as well as justice for those who suffer from mental illness who become entangled in an unjust justice system. They began organizing, inviting other families to organize, and connected with people and organizations who are passionate about prisoner justice, mental health justice, and holding the state to account. Solomon's brutal killing by the guards at the Central East Correctional Center sparked a national movement addressing the treatment of individuals who have mental health issues, who end up implicated in the very unjust justice system. The Justice for Solly movement has been demanding transparency and accountability against the guards who are responsible for Solomon's violent death. They've also been mobilizing, pulling together all the pieces that need to come to the table to create a grassroots movement of people who have a lot in common. Unfortunately, that thread is usually the loss of someone that we love. We gather today in gratitude and in recognition of the courageous, compassionate, and determined hearts and spirits of the Fakiri family. We offer them our thanks for their leadership, their vulnerability, and their strength. We gather in gratitude and in recognition of all the families who have lost loved ones in prisons, who have somehow found the strength to seek justice for their dead. We honor and we thank the families of Sean Spalding, Jordan Sheard, Ijaz Choudhury, for being here with us today. And we honor and recognize all of the families of those killed in prisons or at the hands of state members whose grief has remained so striking that the most important work that can be done at this time is endeavoring personal healing. All of these families matter equally and are part of this very important movement. We want to offer our deepest condolences to all of the families and communities, to declare our solidarity with the projects of prisoner justice and mental health justice, and to commit to taking action to dismantle a prison system where mentally ill people who need medical care are locked away and denied what they need, where the incarcerated languish and have to beg for and starve themselves to seek attainment of their most basic human rights, and where guards sometimes kill with impunity. We're here today because this institution, the Toronto South Detention Centre, is a place where those detained and incarcerated on the inside have been mobilizing for years, just like prisoners across this province, across this country, and across the world, organizing from the inside, trying to attain their most basic human rights. We're here to support and amplify the demands of inmates here. We're also supporting and amplifying the demands of hunger-striking prisoners who've taken direct action to improve their circumstances recently at the Central East Correctional Center, where Solomon was killed, the Ottawa Carleton Detention Center, and most recently at the Milton Jail. Prisoner and advocacy groups dedicated to racial justice and prison abolition have been fighting alongside with prisoners for months and months and months to ensure that prisoners receive full access to time out of their jail cells, yard time, showers, visitation, programming, health and mental health care, free phone calls, sanitation, and personal protection supplies, and other basic necessities. These are really simple demands, and we want them fulfilled for every prisoner who are stuck behind these bars, and we want them fulfilled for every prisoner in every jail across these lands. But people should not be in these jails, and certainly people with mental illness should not be incarcerated in places where people who come in with quote-unquote good mental health are likely to have their mental health eroded. Going to prison is considered to be a social determinant of mental health, which means you can go in here feeling all right, but the chances of you coming out not feeling well go up and up and up, right? So even if people are lucky enough to kind of go in feeling strong, places like this destroy hearts and minds. And so we need to stand in solidarity with the people who are asking for water, for access to their families, for books so that they can actually learn about their own legal rights, and maintain a level of solidarity with all prisoners, no matter what they've done to be behind these bars. Because it is our solidarity with the movements for prisoners' rights, in connection with everyone here's belief that people who suffer from mental illness should not even be behind bars, that in part has us here today. We're also here today because we need to work together towards a world where people who experience mental illness also get to enjoy their fulsome human rights and dignities and have access to the kinds of supports that they need. For that to happen, we need justice, healthcare, compassion, destigmatization, harm reduction, nonviolent advocacy, and approach, an economic investment in the resources necessary for people who suffer from mental illness to get the help that they need when they are in crisis, so that they never, ever have to encounter police, and so that they never risk being sent to a prison like this one. Because we know from the tragic stories of so many people that we have loved, that when human beings who are in mental health crisis or who live consistently with difficult or disruptive mental health diagnoses are sent to jail, far too often they end up dead. The families of the dead are left to grieve the unfathomable loss of their loved ones, while at the same time being confronted by a justice system that protects police and prisons, and prison staff rather, from due scrutiny and accountability. Finally, we are here today because there's a call being made out there asking for the denouncing, the divesting from, the disarming, and the defunding of police, because police keep killing our loved ones in the street. But at this exact and same moment, there are plans in work by the Ontario government and the so-called Canadian government to invest millions of dollars more into building prisons and furthering the apparatus and resource of the carceral state. So continuing to incarcerate more and more people in the works, which means that more and more people who struggle with mental illness will be put behind bars instead of receiving the compassionate medical help that they deserve. More humans will be caged. So we must organize also to defund prisons. So I just want to thank you all for being here and listening to these introductory words. We have a number of speakers today. If you're just arriving, I just want to point out one more time that there's lots of water and there's lots of food. It's quite hot out. So,
and you know, the little bit of discomfort that you're facing right now in this heat means a lot to the families that are here and to all the families that are suffering from similar injustices. So in light of starting us off and grounding us in some comforting words, I would like to recite some verses from the Quran, the Holy Islamic book, followed by some words of inspiration, and then a collective, I'll also call you in collectively doing a prayer with me, with all of us. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ولقد وصينا الذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبلكم وإياكم أن اتقوا الله وإن تكفروا فإن لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وكان الله غنيا حميدا. وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا إِن يَشَأْ يُذْهِبْكُمْ أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ وَيَأْتِ بِآخَرِينَ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ قَدِيرًا من كان يريد ثواب الدنيا فعند الله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر فقد ضل ضلالا بعيدا. صدق الله العظيم. So I will now translate this in English. And to Allah, God, belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. And we have instructed those who were given the scripture before you and yourselves to fear Allah, God. But if you disbelieve, then to Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. And ever is Allah free of need and praiseworthy. And to God belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. And sufficient is God as disposer of affairs. If He wills, He can do away with you, O people, and bring others in your place, and ever is God competent to do that. Whoever desires the reward of this world, then with God is the reward of this world, and the hereafter, and ever is God hearing and seeing. O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for God, even if it be against yourselves, or parents and relatives, whether one is rich or poor, God is more worthy of both. So follow not personal inclination, lest you not be just. And if you distort your testimony or refuse to give it, then indeed God is ever with what you do acquainted. O you who have believed, believe in God and His messenger and the book that He sent down upon His messenger, and the scripture which He sent down before. And whoever disbelieves in God, His angels, His book, His messengers, and the last day has certainly gone far astray. And before I reflect on some of the theme of justice, I just want to remind ourselves why we're all here today. We're here to advocate for mental health rights within the justice system. So I think it's fitting to talk about whose rights we are advocating for. Let's remember who we're talking about. We are talking about people at the end of the day. We aren't talking about disabilities. We aren't talking about patients or illnesses or survivors or inmates or any other label that might come to mind. We are talking about people, and people get sick all the time. We know that in Canada, 1 in 5 people experience a mental health or addictions problem in Canada. And we know the truth. And the truth is that people who have mental illnesses are vulnerable, and they are much more likely to be victims of violence than they are to be violent themselves. And, we use the Quran in the Islamic faith to help try to understand how we should deal with murder. And particularly when it comes to murder that is repetitive and coming out of a singular system. How has death at the hands of those who are supposed to be protecting us become such a common occurrence? And in the case of killing of innocent people who have suffered from mental illness at the hands of the justice system, we aren't just talking about one life, are we? We are talking about hundreds and probably even thousands across Canada alone. There are at least hundreds of people who have died in encounters with the criminal justice system across Canada since 2000, with a substantial majority of them who suffered from mental health problems or symptoms of drug abuse. And since 2000, most Canadians killed in encounters with police have had mental health or substance abuse issues. And what is our call to action then? We have this information. We've had these statistics for many years. And I'd like to point out that in Islam, one element of justice is empowering the victims of injustice. The victims of injustice that stand with us here today. And it sends a clear message to current and future aggressors, and also establishes a system where people who have been wronged consistently have a legal mechanism to be able to go forth and attain justice. And in Islam, there is a term for this, and it is called qisas, which is a legal retribution that exists when a life is taken, when a family has the right to decide the fate of the one who took their loved one. And the Quran talks about there being life in this legal retribution, that there is life in the presence of justice a mechanism of justice for the family of those who have been wronged. The presence of a system that would hold someone back, thus from killing, gives life to the one who has been killed. And thus it empowers the victim and their family. And likewise, in this society, my friends, there should be a system of accountability. And how else can we empower these families? And I'd like to share one saying. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever of you sees an evil, let him change it with his hand. And if he's not able to do so, then let him change it with his tongue. And if he's not able to do so, then with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith." This means that when we see an injustice, we should see this as an invitation not to sit on the sidelines, but to actively engage and work towards seeking justice. That we do all that we can to put pressure on our leaders to bring about accountability for those who have committed these injustices. That means we use our hands and our tongues to call our leaders and call out injustice, to fill out petitions, to write letters to those who can right these wrongs, to voice our concerns and frustrations at rallies and at our dinner tables, and to speak truth in the face of injustice. And there is a word in the Quran also that often gets translated as patience, and that word is sabr. But sabr in the Quran does not simply mean patience. And I'm going to share a reflection that I saw last week. And sabr is one of the most important values in the Quran. And many of us misunderstand it if we simply think of it as simply just patience. Patience in English usage today is a passive term. You know, don't react, don't do anything, be calm, wait. But sabr, this specific sabr means steadfastness, determination, perseverance, doing the right thing in the face of hardship, not giving up, but staying strong. And for example, in the Quran, when some members of the army of Saul wavered in seeing the forces of Goliath, the response in the Quran was, how often by God's will has a small force defeated a more numerous force? God is with the sabirin, those who are steadfast. Obviously, those with sabr are not those who wait and do nothing. They are those who are steadfast in the face of great challenge. And it means to act with determination. And victory is promised for the sabirin. So let's nurture this character trait. And lastly, I'll end it here. Now, I started by mentioning to all of you how close to home mental illness hits for many of us standing here today. So let's continue standing up for them and for the countless other families who are going through the same thing. And what we are asking for, brothers and sisters, is not radical in the slightest. What we are asking for is for our loved ones to be treated with dignity, to be shown care, compassion, and mercy when they need it most, to be protected by the systems whose job it is to protect them. We don't want another family to have to put their loved ones' faces on t-shirts and attend rallies. We don't want to see another hashtag of a loved one who was failed by our criminal justice system. We don't want the names of our loved ones to be etched in the minds of everyone here in society as a result of negligence and utter brutality. If they are etched in the minds, then it should be because of their utter brilliance. And we can change these things. We have the tools, we have the resources, and the people power to put pressure on our leaders and make them accountable. But we need to do it together. Alone, there's only so much that we can do. There's only so much that these families can do. But together, the possibilities are endless. We must not only envision a society where those with the mental illness or substance abuse are dealt with care and dignity, we must act to make this a reality, make this reality happen. Thank you all very much. And before we introduce our next speaker and to continue this rally, I'd like to give a short prayer. And I'd like to invite all of you to join us. Of which you have gifted us, and let us not sleep without truly remembering all that you have done for us. Please increase us in our faith in you and in our trust in you. Increase us in our love for you and our love for that which you love. Our Lord, grant us and the families of our dear and beloved sisters and brothers who have faced the painful realities of the criminal justice system, the peace and tranquility which they are desperately yearning for. Let our anger not be at the petty differences we might harbor. Instead, let our anger only be at injustice, exploitation, and oppression of people, so that we may work as one for equality, justice, and peace. Grant us the courage to stand again after we have fallen, to find meaning in our failures, and to keep moving forward no matter who or what is trying to push us down. Allow us to be torchbearers of peace, truth, and justice wherever we embark. Heal the hearts and minds of those suffering with mental illnesses of all forms. Allow our institutions to recognize and prioritize mental well-being just as it emphasizes mental illness. Let us find meaning in the struggles and tribulations of our daily living. We come to you merely as beggars, as a people that are in need of your presence in our lives, in our homes, and in our places of comfort. I ask that you bless the families of Suleiman Fakiri, Jordan Sheard, Sean Spalding, Ijaz Chowdhury, and all families impacted by this form of injustice with a beautiful patience and perseverance. Give us the courage to persevere through difficulty. Ameen. Thank you all so much.
If you need it, get some food if you need it. This is terrible work, and having to make the shirts, come to the rally, do the things because somebody you love has died is a bad repeating story here. And one of those stories happened only a few weeks ago, and so it has been an absolutely humbling experience over the last few weeks to get to work with and get to know the next speaker I'm going to invite up. We're grateful and thankful to introduce Angela Voss, the mother of the late Jordan Sheard, who lost his life this June at the Central East Correctional Center. Only a short time after her son's tragic death, Angela has gone on the front lines and started speaking out against the maltreatment of individuals suffering with mental health challenges within an unjust justice system. So please give a hand of applause and help me welcome Angela Voss.
Welcome, friends, and some new friends. Thank you for being here. I'm truly honored to be here with you all. I'm here to tell you we tried endlessly to save my son, and we would have continued to stand by his side forever. I don't imagine any greater grief than losing your child. When we couldn't provide him safety and security, we reached out from our loving families to seek professional guidance. Jordan was admitted to Markham Stouffville Hospital because he was suicidal. Dr. Tang was the attending psychiatrist. We begged him to listen, and we told him it was heroin. We swallowed big on our pride when we told him where it was. He said it was a personality issue. Was fentanyl-laced heroin the size of a golf ball lodged in somebody's bowels not a concern in your hospital, in a medical facility? Why was intervention not given? Asking Jordan to cooperate when he was dope sick. Your judgment made you abuse your professionalism, and your lack of care put Jordan's life at risk and many others in a mental health unit. It's proven success that we stand by someone's side. Giving them the chance to trust you provides them much better results than trying to force someone into something by someone they don't know and they don't trust. Sent from Markham Stouffville Hospital to a holding cell for the night because Dr. Tang was off for the weekend. Is this how we treat somebody with a mental health crisis?
Shame!
Why was our information not carried on about the heroin after we swallowed such pride to tell you where it was? Why was there no report for a suicide watch? This lack of diligence could have risked more lives. And Dr. Tang, this is for you because your patient confidentiality, as is mine, only takes you as far as somebody else risking their lives or someone else's lives. Transferred to Lindsay Correctional Facility, no screening, no checks, and no suicide watch. And definitely no intervention. Jordan overdosed later that very day. They treated him with Narcan and sent him to the hospital as they're supposed to do. when he went back to the Lindsay jail, no 48-hour check or watch as per their policies on overdose, no suicide watch, no screening, and no intervention. The next day, Jordan was acting strange. He's a person who just had an overdose in your facility, has a seizure disorder, a brain injury, and is now in a mental health crisis. Why was a nurse not called? They tossed him in his cell, and when they found him barely clinging to his life, they chose to not give Narcan, knowing they did not give Narcan. They watched him die, knowing without Narcan, CPR would not be effective. They aided him to die. The guards claimed that they were aware of his health conditions, but they let him die. Being such a good citizen and living my life to uphold the law, now you've killed my son. We must evolve our world to be a place led with compassion, empathy, and love for all mankind. 1 out of 5 people will experience mental health and addictions. We need to lower this number by providing appropriate resources for recovery or to maintain a good quality of life. A good quality of life. Not a hotline with a 6 to 9 month waiting list. Not a negligence of not maintaining a court-ordered services for mentally ill patients that have been suffering for months with any services. This justice system isn't broken, friends. It was built this way, bound by policy and internal review. Justice for all those lives that have been lost, and my love and the deepest condolences to all of your families. Justice for basic necessities for all those suffering on the inside of this hell that they call a correctional facility. July 9th to July 17th, 15 people died in Toronto from overdose. Yet still I scream with thousands of other people to make the opioid crisis a national emergency. Justice for mental health, justice for Ijaz Chaudhry, justice for Pierre Courteau, justice for Solomon Farik, justice for Shane Spalding, justice for Abraham Mason, justice for Stephen Duffy, and justice for Ashley Smith, justice for all those who've lost life due to government negligence, justice for Jordan. Thank you.
Each other and making sure that families that go through this have their extended families, their extended communities, and the force of solidarity of people around them, because nobody can go through this alone. Is Hassan around? Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Justice for Ijaz!
Justice for Ijaz! Justice for Ijaz!
Justice for Ijaz! Justice for Ijaz! Justice for Ijaz!
Thank you.
We need the names of the officers! Justice for Ijaz! Justice for Ijaz! Justice for Ijaz!
Justice for Ijaz!
Justice for Ijaz!
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Brother Yusuf and his family and all the organizers here that have given us the opportunity to speak. I'm very thankful for being given the platform to be able to speak up in regards to our family. And I want to thank you all as well for coming out. I know it's a Saturday, especially prime time. You know, this is time you spend with your family, time you do things, taking the time out and supporting us in solidarity for everything that has happened, not just with our family, with multiple families and multiple people that is still occurring with. My uncle Ijaz was murdered about 28 days ago in his own home. The Emergency Task Force of Peel Regional Police was called for a mental wellness check, and they busted down his back door and fired multiple shots into him. Many of you have probably seen the viral video going around. It kind of shows you exactly what happened, so I don't really want to speak up too much about it. Most of you have probably seen it, so you have an understanding of what kind of happened. It's been 28 days, and every single time we've been told by politicians, by the Chief of Police, of Peel Regional Police, the same thing. SIU is investigating, SIU is investigating, SIU is investigating. That's the only thing we've been told. Imagine having your father, your uncle, your brother, your loved one be murdered, and you're being told to just have patience.
Shame! Shame!
It took you 3 seconds. It took you 3 seconds to shoot multiple shots into a 62-year-old father of 4, eldest of 6 siblings, and uncle of 25 nephews and nieces. It took you 3 seconds. If it takes you 3 seconds to murder someone who's so medically and mentally ill, why does it take a minimum already 28 days to give us an answer? It makes no sense. Our family has been mourning. Our family has been mourning for 28 days. 28 days, and we have nothing to just, like, we have no reason to kind of feel better. If there was something, there's been given 0 answers. It's frustrating because I don't even know how to speak up about it. I've been going to multiple rallies, multiple protests, and I'm forced to kind of say the same thing. Because every single time I go, it's the same thing from their side. Oh, our condolences, we're so sorry, and the SIU is still investigating. Why don't you give the power to the SIU to investigate quicker? Why don't you give the power in the SIU's hands that they can complete a thorough and legitimate investigation? Even though we don't have full faith in the SIU, because clearly, again and again, you can see 99% of their cases have been voted in favor of the actual police officer that committed it. It just brings you into the thought of mind that you see a system that's supposed to be built for you. Again, with the correctional facility here as well, you see that it's supposed to be built for you, it's supposed to help you, it's supposed to help the public. You know, we're trying to bring crime rates down, but it does the complete opposite. The murder that didn't happen outside happened inside. Again and again, I see Brother Yusuf, his brother Solomon. I went up further into the case when it happened. I read about it, and he's actually a member of the community, so I knew of it. But when you actually get details of what happens, it hurts. A mentally ill man is beaten with 50 bruises again and again. Well, he shouldn't. First of all, he shouldn't be here to begin with. He has a mental health issue, and you're putting him within 4 walls. Anyone with a good mental state of mind goes into a crisis being in a prison. We see it again and again. Why do you put someone who has a mental health problem within 4 small walls? Imagine if I took you, an innocent person who's mentally ill, and I said, listen, you know what? I'm going to put you in this room and I'm going to lock you here for years. How would you feel? They don't know how it feels because they're not in the position. They have power, they have authority, they've been given power and authority by the government, and they abuse it again and again and again. We don't just see it in the prison system, we see it in the public itself. My uncle was in his own home. He was in his own home. Imagine you're sitting in your own home and you see a SWAT team pull up to your back door with assault rifles, Glock 9s, fully body armored up, and shoot multiple shots into you. That shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen, and it's hard. It's hard to seriously just cooperate with the government. It's hard to understand what they're trying to say because what they're saying makes 0 sense. Anyone who's in distress does not need guns, does not need someone with body armor pulling up to their home or where they feel safe and intimidating them when you already know they're afraid. It makes no sense, and again I say it. I hope every single person that is out here, regardless if this injustice is occurred with you or if you're standing here in support with solidarity, I thank you all for coming out and speaking up, because it's very difficult. I myself, that was my uncle. So I feel for how his kids are, how his wife is, and I can't understand how much pain they're going through. I as a nephew, I'm going through so much pain. So I understand the pain that comes through when losing your loved one in such an unjust way, because it shouldn't have happened. And again, I thank you all for coming out. I hope we do all get justice in some way. In reforms, of course, is hoping that it comes in a soon time. Because it's been 30, 40 years and we've been seeing it again and again. People keep saying, why all of a sudden have people started to speak out? Why all of a sudden is there Black Lives Matter movements? The reason why is because a lot of our parents have migrated from other countries to Canada for a better life. And when they came here, they didn't speak English. They didn't have the fluency of the mother language of Canada. And now their kids, their children, their loved ones who have grown up here in this community have adapted to the Canadian lifestyle. We have gotten the power to speak up. And that's why we're all here today. If it wasn't for us, these type of things would keep happening again and again without any type of actual action. So I thank you all, and I say justice for every single person that is here, every single movement that is going on in this country, in this world, and I hope you guys all do get justice in some way, and I hope that we do get justice as well, and inshallah everything does work out. All right, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can you hear me okay? I would like to begin by saying thank you to Yusuf Fakiri and his family for inviting us out today. And I would like to wish peace and strength to his family and all the families who have had lost loved ones and who are waiting for answers and justice. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala magnify your reward, perfect your bereavement, and forgive your departed. Ameen. As you heard, I'm here because Across Boundaries provided supports and services for 9 years to Andrew Loku. Andrew Loku was a black man from Sudan. He was a father of 5. He was suffering from mental health and addiction issues and trauma. But he was rebuilding his life. He had a few goals, and they were very simple. He wanted to reunite with his family. He wanted to be able to go back to school, and he wanted to get off his medications because they were causing him a lot of side effects. And he was on his journey to recovery. He had just come back from Sudan. He had met up his family. He was making plans to bring them over. He had gotten off his medications over a period of time, and he was managing his illness. And he had just graduated from George Brown College with a diploma in woodworking. 2 weeks after that graduation, Andrew Loku was shot at the hands of the Toronto police officer who came to his building responding to a mental health call. And within 20 seconds of his arrival, Andrew Loku was dead. It took 20 seconds for this officer to decide that a black life was not important enough to exist.
Shame! Shame!
Shame!
Along with Black Lives Matter and other voices, Across Boundaries asked for an inquest and SIU investigation. We got both, but to this date we don't have any resolution. That inquest was the first in the history of Ontario that actually made recommendations around anti-racism, around policing, and around mental health. 18 recommendations out of those 39 touched upon this. 2 weeks ago, it was 5 years to when Andrew Loku was killed. To this day, we have not seen any meaningful implementation of those recommendations. 5 years later, nothing.
Shame!
Shame!
It is this lack of implementation and this lack of accountability from agencies that we continue to see more Andrew Lokus. Different day, different face, different city, same end. Since April of this year alone, we have seen 9 bodies that have been killed at the hands of police. 9 black, indigenous, or racialized people who in Canada have died because of their interaction with the police and mental health. We know of Regis Korchinski Paquette. We know of Mr. Ejaz Chaudhry. We know of Dandre Campbell. We know of so many others. Most of them lived with mental health issues and were in crisis when police arrived. And like Andrew Loku, these are all people who were loved, valued, and should be here with us today. So what do these names have in common with Suleiman Fakiri, whose death was in the prison? Everything. We have to recognize that when we talk about the justice system, that it is an interconnected, well-oiled beast that begins with the involvement with the police, then the courts, then sentencing, and then on to the prisons. And at each of these steps, Black, Indigenous, and racialized lives continue to face racism, a racist system that devalues and dehumanizes their lives to the point of death. There is no guarantee that if Andrew Alupo had not been killed that night, that if he had gone through this system, that if he ended up in a prison, that his fate would not have been the same as Suleiman Fakiri. No guarantees whatsoever, because what we see on the streets around Sainism, anti-Black racism, anti-oppression, thrives behind the walls of the prison systems as well. So where do we go from here? We need to stop using the carceral system as a response to social issues such as poverty, homelessness, as a response to mental health crises, as a response to trauma and response to criminalization of queer, trans people, street people, sex trade workers. We need to make sure that those who are on the margins of society just because we happen to be racialized, Black, or Indigenous are not caught up in the system. We need to stop sanitizing mental health and addictions as something that is clean and safe when it interacts with white people, but messy, problematic, and fatal for racialized Black and Indigenous people. We need to stop being policed in certain ways. We have to be careful in how we take up public spaces, how we speak, how we dress, how we resist, how we protest, how we show our anger, because all of these can and is used against us in a court of law. We need to shift what we consider criminal and who we criminalize. We need to look at who we institutionalize and who we psychiatrize. We need to have whole conversations on why we continue to invest in policing, in prisons, in states of system of control and confinement, but not in systems of care and healing, which is what we need. We need to redefine justice and safety and ask, justice and safety for whom? Because I can tell you right now, it is not for me. It was not for Suleiman Fakiri, not for Andrew Loku, not for Angela's son, not for any of you who are out here in this gathering, and not for any of those who I know in the near future will be killed again. We need a future where we don't have families such as the Fakiri family, the Chaudhry family, the Voss family, the Campbell family, who have buried their loved ones but have been unable to just grieve and move on with their lives because they await justice. And for some of them, years later, they are still waiting. This is a form of imprisonment and a life sentence for these families. And let's be clear, we only know of Suleiman Fakiri today and others because their families invested their lives in understanding their deaths. But what about all of those? What about all of those other lives that are lost behind bars and for whom there are no Yusuf Fakiris to keep demanding answers and justice, to bring media attention to their loss, to ask for accountability from the people who were responsible and under whose care they were? Did those lives not mean anything? Do their identities and memories get to be erased so conveniently? In a word, yes. Finally, we know prisons are getting bigger, that more investments are being made into them, and more reliance on them to cage our loved ones when they're in a crisis. So we need to stop having our racialized Black, Indigenous, Muslim lives fuel the fire that keeps this industry alive. Because without the sacrifice of our bodies, this industry would cease to exist. Thank you.
Justice for Andrew! Justice for Andrew!
Justice for Andrew! Justice for Andrew!
They may be dead, but their names should always be honored with dignity. Things that they were not given when they're alive, but that they have a right to now. Don't forget that, ladies and gentlemen.
So that they can come to a place of release or next step with their loved ones. So I would really, really, really love it if you could put your hands together for Shanika, please.
Hello, hi everyone, thanks for coming out. Sorry, there's something I really have to say other than thank you to everyone before I start my speech. I do not appreciate the people that work at this facility laughing at other people's stories or other people's loved ones. I think that's disgusting and you guys should be ashamed of yourself. It's not your job to sit here and laugh at other people's loved ones that have passed away. It's not your job to sit here and laugh at people's stories when they're grieving for their loved ones. You guys are disgusting. very disgusting individuals.
Smiling now. Smile now.
And I'm calling it out. Yeah, you guys over there, I've been watching you for the longest time. Disgusting. Do not stand here when I talk about my brother and laugh about his story, because I will not think it's funny. Thank you. Back to what I want to say. Hi, everyone. So today I'm here to speak about my brother, Sean Spalding. He passed away last year, March 3rd, 2019. He was at Maplehurst Correctional Facility. He was only there for 1 day. He passed away the second day. He was transferred to their facility and he was there for 1 day and passed away. My brother suffered an intestinal heart attack that lasted 27 hours. He asked for help multiple times and was refused his rights to medical attention.
Shame.
My brother did not even have food, water. The only thing that was in my brother's stomach was gravel. Gravel. This is what you guys decided to give him, gravel. My brother could not even stand up or nothing. He was hunched over the whole time in pain. The last person to put my brother in his cell told my brother, oh, it looks like you need to go to the hospital, but guess what? I need to start my weekend, so you need to get up and get in your cell. And up to this day, my family still has received no justice for my brother. They try to cover up his story. His investigation is still ongoing. I don't know what we're investigating. We know what you guys did. We know you guys denied his medical rights. Because I live 2 minutes away from the hospital. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? I live 2 minutes away from the hospital. The new Humber River Hospital.
If that.
Not even 2 minutes. Like a minute and a half to get to the hospital. We could drive there. And my brother would have got medical attention. What they told my family was, how do you know he wanted to? How do you know he would live?
27 hours.
He suffered 27 hours. So I suggest that you suffered 27 hours. You wanted to live, right? Because I wouldn't have stood here 27 hours if I didn't want to live.
27 hours.
But his rights were denied. Just like they're going to sit here and cover up everybody else's stories and anybody else who passed away and we don't know about it. They're going to continue to cover it unless we stand together as one and continue to make sure that people's voices are heard and their stories continue to get out. They're going to continue to cover up because they just work for each other. They don't work for us. Like I said at the Lindsay rally, these people don't care about nobody but themselves, and they can stand here and hide behind a badge and their guns because that's what they're going to do. You cannot come to me like a real person hand in hand. You guys are going to stand beside what you guys can do. Stand behind a badge, and badge gives you power.
Don't have that
the power energy. To the kids that were bullied in high school. I'm sorry that you guys were bullied, but I wasn't the high school bully. So it doesn't give you a right to come out here and taunt people. It doesn't give you a right to be murderers and take other people's loved ones' life. It doesn't give you a right to use your badge to give you the right to beat anybody, shoot anybody, take anybody's life. It doesn't give you the right. Because if I decided I was going to walk outside and take somebody's life, I'm sure they would arrest me and put me in jail. So the same way when you guys kill people's loved ones and hurt them or take liberty or advantage of people's loved ones with mental illnesses, are people that you know are unable to communicate anything for themselves. You guys have no right to do that. They're taking their voices away. When you lock somebody in behind these gates, they treat them like trash, garbage. They don't have no rights. They get treated worse than a dog. They get treated worse than your police dog. If you kick one of those police dogs, you're going to jail.
Child molesters got more protection than people in jail for drugs.
Exactly. If somebody's son, like your story, for instance, if somebody's son could go into a facility and get drugs, where do you think it comes from? Who do you think brings that in there?
Exactly.
It's them. The people standing right over there. All them and their friends over there. It's them that do it. These people should be ashamed of themselves. Very ashamed. And you guys are weak. Because you guys hide behind a badge. It makes you weak. I don't hide behind a badge. I come as I am. I'm not hiding behind anybody. I stand alone and I stand with people. And I'm not hiding. What you guys do and continue to do is wrong. When you guys think you're going to get away with, you guys are going to have to pay for it one day. Whether it's you your loved one or whoever or ancestor or generation down the line, you guys will pay. There's a thing called karma, and karma works.
None of these guards.
Justice will be served, whether you guys get arrested and go behind your own gates, whether you're going to have to answer for today, tomorrow, whenever, you guys are going to answer for your guys' crime.
Never. You guys would never handle behind the bars.
I just want to say that nobody's loved ones here today is going to go forgotten. So justice for Ijaz. Justice for Jordan, sorry. Why did I want to say Jordan? Justin. Sorry, it's me and this justice, you guys. For each and every single individual that has lost somebody here who didn't deserve to lose a loved one. I'm very sorry for each and every single person here who has lost a loved one. My prayers go out to each and every single one of you guys and your guys' family. And I will not stop speaking for your guys' justice. I will always come out to each and every single one of these rallies if I can. And I'll continue to speak because I'm not hiding. And they're going to get justice. Thank you, everyone.
Amazing.
Justice for Sean!
Justice for Sean!
Justice for Sean!
Justice for Sean!
Justice for Sean! Growing up as a Muslim immigrant in the GTA during the onset of the War on Terror era, his words navigate through those realities often shunned from the mainstream. So please help give a hand for Dialectic. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction. First and foremost, we're creating history by being present here today. This is something that is remarkable that is happening right now. That we're standing here and we're letting those people inside there know that we care about them, that we have not abandoned them, that a system that abandons them, that is something that we aren't here to support. We are here to support them and their lives and to dignify them. So on that note, I'd also like to say that when we talk about these deaths that have happened over the past couple of months and the past couple of decades, this is something that doesn't happen in a vacuum. This isn't something that happens out of the blue. It is a system that was built and designed, and it sustains itself by feeding on the marginalized and the most vulnerable within our societies. This is a system that is part of a historical legacy. This just doesn't happen out of the blue. It is the continuation of legacies of oppression and brutality and injustice. So reflecting on the past couple of weeks, particularly with the death of Ijaz Chaudhry and what we see happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, I wrote this song entitled Stolen. How many does it take for you to feel the pain when a bullet pierces the chest? How can the silence remain when the arm tightens its grip to suffocate? How long will it take? 8 minutes or a split second of rage? How many names became hashtags in this way? How many did they give? How many did they take? How many lies are summarized in just a number or a phrase? But we've been here before. They battered a shackled Suleiman till he lay on the floor. And all those bullet holes, empty shells robbed families and left them haunted with ghosts. 2 scores for Amadou, just like they gave Ijaz, DeAndre and Andrew Loku. They couldn't see them as victims in need of assistance. Maybe they're the ones instilled with the sickness, greed and addiction to stealing existences. No one knelt with Cap when he was protesting. Now they kneel like he knelt, like that knee pressed against George Floyd's neck. In the sea of soul, God gave us his breath. It's not yours to take. Nafas ar-Rahman, exalt praise with each exhale. No faith in the system. No trusting these pigs when they got a license to kill. Pulling triggers for the thrill. Industrialized mechanisms for poor people to be killed. Defunded mental health services to invest in cages. But they called free breakfast for kids terrorism. Weaponized skin pigments into a death sentence when they threw them in a pit like the Ku Klux in Charlottesville. Because police and prisons exist to protect property and class interests. Capitalism is exploitation made possible through division. At the expense of our detriment, they stack their billions. When they couldn't keep slaves in chains and they cleared the plains, they built new ways to protect their gains. Built all these walls so tall to enclose us and close them off. But disappearing people doesn't disappear the problem. Commissioned to conduct John Locke's doctrine, these tendencies of insecurity bred from an us versus them mentality. When you perceive human beings through complexities of inferiority and supremacy, hierarchies sustained to give them a monopoly on melanin and markers of biological discrepancies, skull sizes and religious forgeries, curse of Ham and fictitious philosophies seen in scenes on screens are implanted so deep that we only see dangers and threats as the light reflects our irises, and not the pain or misery, the affection or the beauty. Cries for help or someone in need, shrieks and screams, masses anger is grief. The roots of this history are just so deep. When the bullet leaves the gun, in that moment it isn't where it begun. That's just a product of generational indignation. Built a system that justifies each shot fired as protection. But the need to police began overseas, capturing and trafficking human beings. That theft was the original foreign policy, the process of depriving a person of their humanity, to keep them trapped in the game, pipeline designed to manufacture the disdain, so when they revolt, they can call them insane. But who pays the highest price for this pain? Who pays the highest price for this pain? Mothers and daughters and sons. I wonder if the tears and blood will submerge to become one, swallow them whole. If one day these walls will crumble and fold, reparations for every soul caressed by the hands of God that you stole. We know how the story goes. Below decks, commodities shift from the Cape of Good Hope, thrown overboard, imported to build a new world. Every soul you stripped of minerals and gold, bought and sold, whipped and told they were less at their core, castigated, scalping heads, killed off their buffalo to spectate land and build your homes. So when you throw them in the hole, we know why. 500 years of systematized genocide, and you tell them to watch their tone, only a matter of time before they come for your throne. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those words. He is the brother of Solomon Fakiri, who was killed by guards at the Central East Correctional Center, and who has somehow, through his deep connection to faith, to family, and to the love that his brother left behind, been able to mobilize, and is one of the cornerstone reasons why we are all here today. The Justice for Solly movement is broad and filled with a whole bunch of different people working from all kinds of different spaces with different capacities, lending their energy. And so I always want to make sure people know that there's all kinds of people behind the scenes that you may not see who are pushing and working this movement. But it would not be what it is, and we would not be here today if it weren't for this man here. So give a hand for Yusuf Fakiri. And his family is here today too, so give it up for the Fakiri family.
Miles, I could speak without the...
Oh yeah, freestyle.
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Cable for you.
Respected, I greet you with the greetings of peace. Peace that's tempered from our hearts, emanating from our mind, and yearning for a world that's tempered by compassion. I greet you with the greetings of peace. Peace that's tempered from our hearts, emanating from our mind, and yearning for a world that's tempered by compassion. Among all of you today, ladies and gentlemen, you have the mother of Suleiman Fakiri, my beloved mother. You have the mother of Jordan Shared. You have members of Dondre Campbell family who I have to pay homage to, my dear friend Jermaine. You have the sister of Sean Spalding. You have the daughter and also the nephew of our dear uncle Ijaz Chowdhury amongst the crowd. My dear friends, the standard that our loved ones were killed should never be the standard that we react in building a better tomorrow. Rather, the standard that we subscribe to. Floundering compassion to building that better tomorrow, to cultivating the flower so it blossoms for a better tomorrow, to implanting the seeds. Another Ashley Smith. Rather, that is our standard, because it's a standard that Canadians across this nation know full well that that's important. Canadians across the nations are saying enough. Our fellow Canadians from coast to coast, qui commencent à Colombie-Britannique jusqu'à Terre-Neuve, qui dire, mesdames et messieurs, c'est suffit de la maltraitement des gens qui sont souffrés de la santé mentale. What Canadians are saying, from all the way from British Columbia to the other end coast of this nation, of this great nation, all the way to Newfoundland, that people with mental illness and their treatment is enough is enough. Toutes les Canadiennes disent c'est suffisant. Toutes les Canadiennes disent que c'est notre droit. Notre droit, si on souffre de santé mentale, c'est notre droit pour avoir de justice. It is our right to have justice, suffering from mental illness. Those are my opening remarks. I am an extremely ordinary man who's given an extremely ordinary mission. I honor my late brother, and tempered with my beloved mother and father in guiding me in the work that we're doing today, inspired by my faith in this, my faith. But before I start, I want everybody to look at the pain of another mother, the mother of Suleiman Fakiri. I want to read this quote for everybody to listen here. This is from Mr. John Thibault, the eyewitness at the Quarter Lakes Police Service, the original police service that did not speak with Mr. Thibault, that they did not investigate. Look what he said. They beat him to death. There's no other answer. They viciously beat him to death. I know what I've seen. This is the hands of Suleiman Fakiri, the man that his mother fed milk, the man that raised his youngest brother, the man that taught his mom how to read Arabic, the man that taught me how to pray, the man that taught his younger brother how to drive. This is the Suleiman Fakiri. But today isn't just about Suleiman. Today is about Dondre Campbell. Today is about Ijaz Chowdhury. Today is about Sean Spalding. Today is about Jordan Sherritt, Pierre Corleon, Rodney Levy, Justin Saint-Amour, Cass Geddes, Andrew Loku. I'll say more names in the end, ladies, and just to give you names. And it's a fitting day today, ladies and gentlemen, for any historical geeks to know today. You know what kind of day today is? The man, one of the greatest embodiment of justice of the last 20th century was Nelson Mandela Day. Today is Nelson Mandela Day. And if we tempered it to what the great French philosopher Michel Foucault, he said in his seminal book, I don't usually talk about Foucault, but I think it's a fitting day that we talk about Foucault. Foucault said in his book, there's no such thing as progress. Progress has gone from the body to the soul, referring to the panopticon. This is very important for us, as individuals are being punished to this day. So with that in mind, let's talk about Suleiman Fakiri. Let's talk about what we as a society, as a nation, as proud Canadians with a proud history of civic engagement, we need to do. C'est bien de parler très bien de qu'est-ce que tous les Canadiens doivent faire. Qu'est-ce que tous les Canadiens peuvent faire contre le traitement des gens qui souffrent de son mental? Quel est notre travail? Premièrement, nous exigeons la transparence. Nous exigeons la responsabilité. Nous exigeons la justice. We demand justice, accountability, and transparency for the violent killing of Suleiman Fakiri. I will not talk about Suleiman's life too much because I've talked about it a lot, and I don't want to break more people's heart, but I want to give some facts before we talk about everything else. 50 bruises, ladies and gentlemen, at the time of his death, according to the Ontario coroner. 50 bruises. C'est les 50 frappés. Both his legs and his hands were tied as he was pepper sprayed. 12 guards went in, they took turns beating him to death. Yet only 3 days earlier, he was ordered by an Ontario judge to be transferred to a hospital because he was only there for 11 days. He was never supposed to be there to begin with. So, you know why they weren't transferred? It's because apparently he was waiting for a bed. Yet now we're spending $500 million on the Ministry of Solicitor General on prisons because there's no bed. 3 jours avant son décédé, la juge a demandé que Suleiman transfère à l'hôpital. Il attend pour une chambre. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some fundamental questions to ask. What kind of society, what kind of nation do we live in when a 62-year-old man suffering from mental illness is shot to death? What kind of society do we live in when a 26-year-old man who calls for help is shot in front of his siblings? What kind of society do we live in when a young man is suffering, is having a heart attack and dies? What kind of society do we live in when a young man is told, young man goes to the hospital, is on suicide watch, and is given to his mom in a body bag? What kind of society do we live in when the mother of Suleiman Fikiri, after 43 months, the 15th of July was 43 months since his killing, is still asking for these three monumental yet simple terms: justice, transparency, and accountability, yet they seem to be elusive. We as a nation, we as a society, comme un pays, comme une société, on exige ça. We demand this. C'est notre droit, mesdames et messieurs. It is our right. This is not something unique. This is something within the parameters of our right. But my advice to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of my family, the family that continues to go through the pain, and that we're sharing our collective pain with other families today, that they come and support us, because we're going through the hard work so we could pretend, so we could make sure another family does not go through. I ask all of you, a broken man, to transfer and translate that anger and that rage and that passion into civic action, within the confines of sending emails to your member of parliament, within standing in solidarity in a day like today. We as a nation, we have a rich history of civic engagement. Alors on doit continuer ça. Because ladies and gentlemen, if we allow this system to continue, make no mistake, there will be more body bags whose loved ones are given to their family. There will be more Pierre Corleans, more Justin Saint-Amour, more Cascadis, more Sean Spalding, more Jordan Sherrod, more Suleiman Fikiri, more Ijaz Chowdhury. We have a fundamental problem as a nation in our treatment of people suffering from mental illness. Within the parameters of the justice system, on avoir un problème fondamental de la façon des gens traitement de le système de justice qui sont souffrent de santé mentale. I say some words in French, ladies and gentlemen, because mental illness does not discriminate. I speak to my fellow Canadians, Francophone Canadians, to understand mental illness touches all of us from all backgrounds, ethnicity, race, and gender. And the names I'm about to give you, you will see that there's a common denominator. But this man, whose name is Suleiman Fikiri, who I had the pleasure to be his oldest brother, was a man that I loved dearly. We grew up, we went through difficulties, we played video games together, we laughed, we argued, but we learned from each other. Or Sean Spalding's sister, who probably spent some amazing time with her beloved brother. Or Jordan Sherrod's mother, who spent some incredible time with her beautiful son. Or the daughter of Uncle Ijaz Chowdhury, who looked to her father for leadership. Yet, or the mother of Dondre Campbell, who had a special place for her son. Yet the system killed them. Yet the system said, it's not our problem. Yet the system said, here is the body bag, take it. Ladies and gentlemen, if we do not change this, this will continue, and our work will be in vain. If we do not change this, then what will our future generations say to us? Will our future generations say to us that we are brave, or were we conformist? What will history remember us? Qu'est-ce que l'histoire nous souvient? Que nous sommes avant des courage, de passion? Suleiman is gone. Ijaz Chowdhury is gone. Sean Spalding is gone. Jordan Sherrod's gone. Dondre Campbell's gone. Andrew Loku's gone. But it is up to you, ladies and gentlemen, Canadians across the nation, beginning with you, to change this. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's difficult. But what an opportunity. What a responsibility to do this. A monumental difference in that the day we leave tomorrow, we leave today for a better tomorrow. Yes, it's painful. Believe me, I won't even share some of my own pain, but I'll say I've had a very difficult 3.5 years. But I would not change it for a second. You know why? Because for me, it's what Suleiman wanted. For me, what Suleiman needed. And although they killed him, and we should always be disciplined in using those standards. Not the same standard that our loved ones were killed, but it's the standards of the values of the various areas in Canada we're from. I've spoken across the nation, and what I've heard from Canadians from all walks of life, the common theme is they give our loved ones to a body bag without justice, without accountability. Need to enrich and enhance the society to building that better tomorrow, to honoring Sean Spalding, to honoring Jordan Sherrod, to honoring Jas Chowdhury, to honoring Dondre Campbell, Pierre Corleon, to honoring them. Honor is a very difficult thing to achieve, but my God, my Lord, it is a powerful mechanism that can change the world. And all of you embody or emanate that part of honor by coming here today. And this cannot be done alone. I leave you off with a few more things before I go. I'll give you some names. And before I start, just a couple of things. There's a rally to hold the 1-month anniversary of our Uncle Ijaz on Monday at 5:30. The Malton People's Movement. Please support this family. My family is supporting the Chowdhury family, not because we should, but because we have to, and it's our obligation. So I ask all of you to support the Chowdhury family. Come to the vigil at 5:30 this Monday. My dear friend Angela is organizing a rally for her son Jordan in Barrie on July 26th. So if anybody can make it, we'd love to have you. And if anybody needs a ride, I will make arrangements for you to come. So we need to support Angela and her family. We have to stick together. And then next week in Kingston, Ontario, the jail capital of Canada, la semaine prochaine, la capitale de la prison au Canada, will be our third stop in our Justice for Sully prison tour. After that, we're off to Ottawa, Hamilton, London, and other cities are in the works. So those are the housekeeping items. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you some names. Because make no mistake, my family decided to fight after Suleiman's killing. And we're not going to stop until we achieve justice for all, especially within the confines of mental illness, within the confines of throwing them in segregation. On n'a jamais arrêté. En particulier qu'il est dans les confinements, qui souffrait de santé mentale. On n'a jamais arrêté jusqu'à en avoir la justice. Pour tout. Pour M. Spalding, pour M. Campbell, pour M. Sherrod, pour Mme Smith, pour M. Chowdhury. We're not going to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you some names. Just some names, but many that had a story to tell. And etch them in your heart. Honor them in your heart. And I'll tell you the common denominator. Vancouver, Tony Du, Rodney Levy. Winnipeg, Mature Medot. Winnipeg, Errol Green. Toronto, Andrew Loco. Regis Korchinski-Paquette. Stephen Duffy. Mississauga, Ijaz Chowdhury. Dondre Campbell. Milton, Sean Spalding. Ottawa, Justin Saint-Amour. Ottawa, Cascadis. Ottawa, Abdurrahman Abdi. Lindsay, Jordan Sherrod. Lindsay, Abdurrahman Hassan. Thunder Bay, Moses Beaver. Kitchener, Ashley Smith. Montreal, Pierre Corleon. East Coast, Matthew Hines. Edmondson, New Brunswick, Chantal Moore. And Lindsay, Ontario, my beautiful, beloved, cherished brother, Suleiman Fikiri. You know what the common denominator, ladies and gentlemen, between all those names? They all suffered from one form of mental illness. You know the common denominator between all of them? they were all given to their loved ones in a body bag because the justice system killed them. You know, the common denominator between all those names, not one has achieved justice to this day. And you know, the final common denominator before all of them is that their lives were viewed as cheap because they suffered from mental illness. Leur vie ne compte pas, mesdames et messieurs, parce qu'ils ont souffert de santé mentale. What kind of society do we truly live in? Hope everyone can hear me. What kind of society do we truly live in when people with mental illness are given to their families in body bags?
Shame.
Quelle société, mesdames et messieurs, nous habitons que des gens de souffrir de santé mentale, leur famille leur trouver dans un sac? The time is now to change that. The time is right now that we must change that. And because if we don't, there will be more Suleimans, there will be more Jazz Chowdhuries, there will be more Sean Spaldings, there will be more Jordan Sherrds, and there will be more Dondre Campbells. I leave you with this quote, ladies and gentlemen, and then after this quote, I want everybody to say justice for Sully. Suleiman was a special man. This movement, he was the catalyst for it, but this movement is no longer just about Suleiman. It's about our collective grief, inspiring Canadians to treat people with mental illness with respect and dignity and honor. Nelson Mandela Day, I end off all my quotes, today is particularly important, who spent 27 years unjustly in the South African jail. We all know the quote he said, the greatest measure of any society is how that society treats its most vulnerable. The greatest measure of a society is how a society treats its most vulnerable. La meilleure façon, mesure dans partout toutes les sociétés, c'est leur traitement de leurs gens qui sont faibles. The pain of my mother rests with me, rests with Suleiman. The pain of all our loved ones rests there. We suffer and we die every day because the justice system killed our loved ones. But we will continue to fight with vigor, dignity, honor. Follow me, ladies and gentlemen. Justice for Sully. 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 Justice for Sully.
Justice for Sully.
Merci beaucoup, Tashakkur. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Peace and greetings be upon all of you.
Really strong in our community. Those of us who are, coming out to speak and to share our care and our love at actions time and time again. Those who have been out in the streets have to take care of themselves too, or else we don't have movements that sustain themselves and continue, right? And so there's all this going on today. I know that BLM has been active in the streets of Toronto. There are movements mounting and connecting left, right, and center, and we need these stories to get interconnected to all of those movements so that we build our capacities and we build our ability to take the grief and the anger and the sadness that we all feel differently from whatever places we're coming from, but to use that as collective fuel to build and build and build the capacity and the resources that we have to be able to not just respond when another horrifying death happens, but to remember that none of this has ever been about a few bad apples. We are talking about a carceral system that from its inception had the project of dominance over in mind, and a dominance that is deeply, deeply rooted in racialization, is deeply rooted in gender-based violence, is deeply rooted in colonialism. And we have to keep these interconnections alive. We have to remember the living. But it's also absolutely crucial that we never, ever forget the names of the dead, and that we never stop saying their names. So before we part here today, I would like to invite the families of any of the dead to come up and join us up front. We are going to have a moment of silence. You're also welcome to stay wherever you're comfortable, but this is usually where we try to grab the folks who feel comfortable coming up for some of those photos of, you know, something none of us ever want. Nobody wants to be in a photo with a whole bunch of other families of people who have lost their loved ones. But this is about building a movement and seeing that across so many different walks of lives coming to this from different spaces, we are all stronger when we stand together.